Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for joining Ambrose and Associates for our very first book club discussion. I really appreciate everyone who's online live right now, and even those who may be watching sometime in the future. Really hope that this series does add value to your life because that's what we're about here at Ambrose and Associates. We seek to add value to your life in whatever way we can. We believe that leadership is about service, and that's why our motto is leadership through service. Now, today, folks, I hope you bear with me for about 30 minutes or less, and it's the first time I'm doing this, so I may be a bit nervous, even though I'm a distinguished Toastmaster, I'm a John Maxwell certified speaker, trainer, and coach. This is a change for me as well. It's something that I'm learning to do. It's something that I love to do, which is to share what I've learned and to add value to others. However, the medium and platform is new to me. I must thank the folks at StreamYard for this wonderful platform whereby I can broadcast to multiple avenues at once. And I do look forward to any questions or comments or feedback. You can use the chat functionality on Facebook and on YouTube. You can leave comments on Facebook and on YouTube, especially for our next session, which will be next Wednesday, same time, 12:15 p.m. That's Eastern Time, GMT -4 to 12:45 p.m. So, folks, today we're going to discuss Who Moved My Cheese. It's a lovely short book. It's very small, as you can see. Very small book by Dr. Spencer Johnson. Who Moved My Cheese. And if you look at my book, I have a number of tags here because I learned that from my mentor John Maxwell, where he keeps tags, he highlights, he makes notes about different things, and I also adopted that habit from him, which has proved to be very useful to me. So you see, I have my tags here, and I've labeled them. I have different color tags so that I know when I'm flipping through a book in the future, I know this tag represents this insight. So I have my yellow tags here, which are represent insightful passages. I have my purplish tags here, which represent positive revelations, and I have my pink tags here, which represent thinking that we should avoid negative thinking in this regard. So I have a small presentation here that I'd love to share with you as we go into Who Moved My Cheese. So it's our book club for December, and just a brief introduction to Ambrose and Associates. We're a leadership and management development consultancy. We offer keynote speaking services, personal coaching, personal development courses. We also love to coach small and medium sized enterprises. We love to help small businesses, those mom and pop, those family business, those single sole proprietor businesses. We love to help those businesses to grow and to develop because we believe in the law of the lid, which is one of John Maxwell's laws in the 21 laws of leadership. And it simply says that, our success is limited by our leadership. And the more we develop our leadership to be more effective, the more effective our organizations will be. So we love to raise the leadership lid of small and medium sized businesses through business coaching. We offer corporate training, so we have a number of courses, many of which are based on John Maxwell's books. As you can see, we have Leadership Gold, which is total gold. We have Everyone Communicates, Few Connects, essential for those customer service businesses. We have 15 invaluable laws of growth, developing a leader within you, which is excellent for your supervisory and managerial leadership programs. You have Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn, great for organizations which are going through a transition or any issues. It's great to build that team morale and spirit. We also offer public speaking training, IT project management consultancy. So our expertise primarily is in the IT field. We have PMI Agile certified practitioners. We have practitioners with a number of years in Agile and Scrum experience and software development. And very soon we'll be offering DISC personality and behavioral assessments, which ties right into the personal and leadership development aim of our company. So, a brief introduction to our series today. Our series is focused today. We're on session one on understanding our reality. Our next session will deal with understanding our scope of change, what we can and cannot change. Session three will be focused on perseverance, how we deal with change, how we're going through change. And session four will be looking at change as a bridge to the future. Okay, so, and session four is where we tie in everything from all the previous sessions. So we're looking forward to you staying with us for the entire series. It's just going to be 4 Wednesdays, again at 12:15 to 12:45. It's more of a lunch and learn. I'd like you to grab your lunch. So you have that 15 minutes, grab your lunch, sit down, join us with your phone, tablet, laptop, whatever device. Put it up on your TV with YouTube as we go on this journey together. So, Who Moved My Cheese? Getting right into it. This book, it centers around a story that was created by Dr. Spencer Johnson to help him deal with a difficult change in his life. It's a very simple parable. So the book, as I said, is very small. It's very short, very small book. Not too many pages. My print version has 94 pages. So it's not going to take you long to read. And I encourage you to get the physical copy as I have. You can get it on Kindle. You can get the audiobook. You can even go to YouTube. There's a lovely video, which we did post before. So you can go to YouTube or go to our page, Ambrose and Associates, on Facebook, and you will see that video, short movie. It's about 10 minutes. That gives a wonderful summary of the story of Who Moved My Cheese. And this book, it explores the concept of change. It explores the concept of cheese and mazes. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, just going right into it. So, in our introduction to the book, so I'm not going to specifically read through the entire book. We will be having videos that we're posting sometime after where we do go through the entire book and go more in depth. But as it's a short lunch and learn, I want you guys to just be able to pull out the main pieces. So our book begins with the story of 4 characters who live in a land far away, and they run through a maze looking for cheese to nourish them and to make them happy. But what is cheese? See, cheese could be any number of things, and the book has it so nicely in that for some, cheese could be having material things. For others, it could be enjoying health, good health, or developing a spiritual sense of well being. For some, cheese meant feeling safe. It meant having a loving family. It could mean living in a cozy cottage on Cheddar Lane. To some, cheese could mean being the big cheese, being the boss, being this famous person. Cheese is what we go for in life. And just like these characters, we also go through a maze, which is called life, to find our cheese. And cheese means a lot. So at the beginning of 2020, most, if not all of us, would have made our resolutions for this year, 2020. What a lovely year. It's so perfect. And we're going to do so many things for 2020. And in an instant, this change called the coronavirus pandemic has hit us. And just like the characters in this book, we were faced with a dilemma as to how to respond to this change. Our goals, we set our goals, but somehow someone moved our goals being our cheese. And some of us would have asked, who moved my cheese? Just as the characters in the book are, we also respond differently to cheese. So in the book, we have four main characters. We have two mice and we have two little people, but they are so small, but they resemble human beings. And these four characters are Sniff. He's a mouse. He sniffs out cheese and he goes dead. We have Scurry, who rushes into action. We have Hem, who's one of the little people, and we have Haw. So Hem is very stubborn. Haw is a bit stubborn, but he's much more amenable to change than Hem. Now, these different characters have different responses and reactions to cheese. So I just like to read one excerpt from this story. It says, every day the mice and little people spend time in the maze looking for their own special cheese. The mice, Sniff and Scurry, possessing simple brains and good instincts, searched for the hard nibbling cheese they liked, as mice often do. The little people, Hem and Haw, they use their complex brains filled with many beliefs and emotions to search for a different kind of cheese, one that began with a capital C. Even though the mice and the little people were different, they shared one thing in common. Every morning, they would put on their jogging suits, as you can see there, and they would put on their shoes. They would leave their homes and they would race into the maze looking for their favorite cheese. As I mentioned before, the maze is an analogy for life. So this maze was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers. Some would contain cheese, but others were dark and they were blind alleys which led to nowhere. It was an easy place for anyone to get lost. Similarly, in our lives, we each go through a maze. Some alleys in this maze lead to success. It leads to us finding our cheese or whatever we desire. Other alleys sometimes result in blind corners. We go into these alleys and we don't find what we want. And we may become disappointed, we may become despondent, just as the little people and the mice may be prone to. So, moving on, when they arrived, so every morning the little people would put on their gear, they would rush into the maze. However, as the book goes, one morning they found cheese at cheese station C. It was an abundant supply of cheese. But as you see, I have my marker here in my book, which shows me that this is an important point. When they found that cheese, they developed a routine to getting that cheese every morning. So it says they would rush into the maze, they would follow the route, and they would find cheese at cheese station C. When they arrived at their destination, however, one important point that we must note, and I encourage you, if you do have the book on Kindle or in person, to put a bookmark here to highlight this point. The mice would take off their running shoes, they would tie them together, and they would hang them around their necks so that they could get to them quickly whenever they needed them. In contrast, the little people, when they reached the cheese station C, they would settle in. They would hang up their jogging shoes. They would their jogging suits. They would put away their running suits and they would put on their slippers. They would become comfortable because they found cheese. Very important point here. The mice, they would tie their shoes and hang it about their necks so that they were always ready to move, whereas the little people became comfortable. And sometimes in life, when we find success, when we find our cheese, we can become complacent, we can become comfortable. However, the encouragement that I want to leave with you today is that to be always prepared, just as the mice were. It doesn't mean that you are dissatisfied with your current situation or that you are dissatisfied with finding your cheese, but we must be vigilant to understand that life can change in an instant. And even though we may have found cheese at one station today, it doesn't mean that we'll always find the cheese at that station. Another point to note is that it wasn't long before the little people, Ham and Haw, regarded the cheese as their own cheese. It was such a large store of cheese that they eventually moved their homes closer to the cheese and built a social life around it. They even decorated their walls with sayings and even drew pictures of cheese around them, which made them smile. One of them was, having cheese makes you happy. However, let's look at the mice. As time went on, however, Sniff and Scurry continued their routine, which was to put on their jogging suits and running shoes, race to the cheese. When they reached there, they would tie their shoes on their neck. They would then arrive early each morning. They would sniff and scratch and scurry around the cheese, inspecting the area to see if there had been any changes from the day before. Then they would sit down to nibble on the cheese. Very different to the little people who initially they also rushed to the cheese, but as they became comfortable, as they became complacent, they began to leave a bit later. Instead of running, they walked to the cheese because they felt as though the cheese was theirs. Sometimes we feel as though the success that we have attained, it is always our success. The promotion that we have attained, it is always our promotion. The income that we have attained is always our income. It's always going to be there. And we become complacent just as the little people did. However, the encouragement again is to look at the example of the mice. They constantly were aware of their surroundings. They constantly inspected and analyzed the cheese at Cheese Station C, just as we should. We should always keep abreast of what's going on in our environment. As a business owner, you cannot afford to remain ignorant to your environment. The business environment is constantly changing. We must keep abreast through business journals, through magazines, through associations to see what is going on in the business world. Whereas, on a personal note, it's always good to keep abreast of developments in your field. If you're into engineering, if you're into carpentry, if you're into culinary arts, it's always great to keep abreast of what's going on in your field. Just as the mice did. Because, as the book goes on, one morning the mice arrived at Cheese Station C and they discovered that there was not any cheese. Could you believe this? They discovered there wasn't any cheese. And the keynote here, you'll see, they were not surprised because they had noticed that the supply of cheese had been getting smaller every day and they were prepared for the inevitable and knew instinctively what to do. And what did they do? They looked at each other, they removed the running shoes they tied around their necks, they put them on their feet and laced them up. They did not overanalyze things. And what did they do? They ran into the maze and continued looking for new cheese. The coronavirus pandemic has caused a lot of businesses to declare bankruptcy. A lot of institutions have had to close because, yes, it was something that we could not look at, however, could not foresee or even predict. However, those businesses that were able to survive and even thrive were those that followed the example of Sniff and Scurry. They were always looking at the environment, they were always analyzing their situation. And when the change occurred, which was there was no longer cheese, they did not overanalyze things. They were prepared to be able to pivot because they always kept their organization, just as the mice kept their shoes, in a state of readiness to be able to pivot to the next direction. And the encouragement again is that we must always be ready to pivot to the next direction. As an employee, you may be enjoying a comfortable job You may think that your place of employment, they will never ever declare bankruptcy. A lot of persons who work for state enterprises and government ministries where I live in Trinidad and Tobago usually have this mentality, especially those who work with utilities or other essential services. They think that these essential services or companies, they would never restructure, they would never shut down. But the example is there where we had Petrotrin in Trinidad and Tobago recently, that the cheese can run out. And what are you going to do as an employee? Well, look at the example of the mice. The encouragement is, as an employee, even right now, it may not be your organization, it may not be your ministry that's in trouble, but now is the time to analyze the environment, to look at your own personal situation, to ensure that your shoes are tied around and hung around your neck so that the day that the cheese runs out, you're able to put on your shoes, not overanalyze things, and that you're able to move on to the next cheese station. So we looked at the mice, but what did the little people do? As I said before, the little people, they began to become complacent. They did not rush to the cheese station early in the morning. They began to arrive later in the day. They took their time. And when they arrived at cheese station, see, later that day, because they had not been paying attention to the small changes in the cheese levels, and they took for granted that the cheese would not always be there, they were unprepared for what they found. The book says, "What? No cheese?" Ham yelled. He continued yelling, "No cheese? No cheese?" As though if he shouted loud enough, someone would put it back. "Who moved my cheese?" he hollered. Finally, he put his hands on his hips. His face turned red and he screamed at the top of his voice, "It's not fair." Does this sound familiar to you? Does this sound like what many employees say, what many businesses say when changes occur? I'm not talking about a pandemic level change. I'm talking about simple changes, changes as regarding technology. Your company may have been involved in traditional media, whereas we now have interactive electronic media, and it's decimating the traditional print media industry. Is your company prepared for the change in technology? And these changes in technologies, it may seem as though they are instantaneous. However, if we do like sniff and scurry, and we continue assessing our environment, understanding our current environment and scenario, we will be able to anticipate most, if not all, of the changes and be prepared to pivot in a new direction. Ham and Ho, however, did not analyze this environment. They did not keep track of changes in the environment. They were unprepared. And what happened? They were angry. And the lesson here is, as it says, the more important your cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. The more important your job is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. The more important your business is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. The more important your relationship is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. However, if you aren't constantly analyzing, constantly getting feedback from your business environment, internal and external, from your relationship, yes, it's important in relationships to continuously get feedback to assess where your relationship is. You may be surprised one day when the cheese runs out, when your business model is no longer effective, when you are no longer deemed as an essential employee, or even when your relationship falls apart. My encouragement as we seek to end this session soon is to continue, one, to keep track of changes in your environment. It is vital as an employee, as a business person, to keep track of your environment. It's not going to remain the same all the time. You will experience changes. The world is constantly changing, and change is one of the constants in life. It's something that we cannot avoid, but it's something that we can prepare for. And in our next session, we'll be looking at how we react or respond to change, and even methods of confronting change. So, my encouragement again: one, continuously assess your environment internally and externally. As a business person, what does this mean? Continue looking at your business environment, continue looking at your business model, ensure that it continues to adapt to the changing environment, continue to develop your employees and your processes so that they are able to pivot whenever changes occur. As an individual, continue to look at your external environment. If you're an employee, look at the job market. Continue to look at your own professional environment. What are the latest advances in your profession? Join a professional association so that you are keeping abreast of the latest developments, the latest changes. What are the latest requirements? Electrical engineers years ago may not have been required to learn about Python or even programming, or even need to be computer literate enough to use Microsoft Office applications or other word processing or Office applications. Now, these things are expected. These things are the baseline. As a professional, it's important for you to keep track of your professional environment, also to keep track of internally. What is your own attitude towards change? What's your own attitude towards personal development? Are you investing weekly, daily, monthly, annually into your own personal investment? As financial planners would encourage us to invest at least 20% of our earnings into savings. Are you investing at least 20% of your earnings or your time into personal development? As an employee, as an individual, personal development and personal growth is your way of investing in yourself so that you are able to continuously find and keep the cheese that you're looking for. And Ambrose and Associates, we are here to help you with that personal development. In 2021, God willing, we're going to be running a series on personal growth based upon John Maxwell's book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. After which, we'll be looking at becoming a person of influence, how to be a real success, and then we'll be looking at developing the leader within you. So we are here to help you on your journey of personal growth. And I encourage you to see if you can get a copy of Who Moved My Cheese. You can check out the YouTube video which we posted on our Facebook page as well to get a summary of it. And I'm encouraging you, like and subscribe, share with your friends. This video will be on Facebook and YouTube afterwards, so share it with your friends and join us for our next session next week, Wednesday at 12:15 p.m. as we explore our response to change and methods of confronting change. So again, it's been a blast. I know the audience may have been small now, but we only really need a few to make a big impact. And I thank everyone for viewing. Thank all those who have shared the information. Good afternoon to you as well, Anil. And thank you for viewing. Feel free to share the video with friends after, and feel free to tune in next week for a second session on this series. And we look forward to sharing with you and helping you to grow and to develop into the leader that you were created to be. So guys, thanks again for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week. You can leave comments, you can share the videos on YouTube and on Facebook, share with your friends and invite them to like and subscribe to Ambrose and Associates. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn and Instagram. And you'll see on the screen there we have our numbers. So feel free to share with your friends and family members as we encourage you to develop yourself and encourage you to grow into the leader that you are meant to be. Thanks so much, folks, and looking forward to our next session, 12:15 p.m. next week. Thank you very much and do have a wonderful day.